Roll for Crit is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Come roll with us at patreon.com/rollforcrit.
Here on the East Coast, we've been struck with a major snowstorm. So while we're stuck inside, we got the chance to peruse Kickstarter to see some great projects for you to back for the week of February 1st, 2021. Oink Games is a Japanese-based board game company that has produced a huge catalog of games that pack quite the punch. Even though they fit in small boxes, they can arrange to regular, like 1 hour long games and can even fit huge player counts. They have come to Kickstarter to feature 3 games, one that is new, one is based off one of their other successful games, and one that is a revised edition. First off, we have In a Grove. This is actually a detective game that they did before. It's revised with new rules and is all about trying to blame the other detectives in the city of who has made the mistakes involving a crime. Then we've got Dokojong, which is a game about trying to hide your dog and find where other people have hidden their dog that is new to their collection. And finally, we have Moon Adventure. This is also a new game, but it's based off one of their successful ones called Deep Sea Adventure, in which it's all about working together and trying to manage your resources in a very desolate, dangerous environment. Will you be able to complete all your objectives before you run out of oxygen? We'll see if you can do it in space. Now, these 3 games come together, and you will have to pay for shipping, which will be a little bit more expensive. It's in Japan. It will be about $65. It's in yen, and including shipping depending on where you are. But like I said, these games are always like, you see them and they're like, they can fit in the palm of your hand, but they have so many crazy things. I have a couple of them. I really wish I had the chance to peruse their entire catalog. So this is a really cool thing to at least take a look at. And like I said, it's nothing, you may have seen these at conventions, but I feel like they're one of those things that are always under the radar because they're not just from some major, German company.
I think the biggest one that I know they publish, at least some version of, that people are probably familiar with, is the Fake Artist Goes to New York.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that kind of concept has been done a few times in other games. But yeah, I really like the looks of these. They're all really adorable. They're small. A couple of these ones for this specific Kickstarter are deduction based, which is one of my favorite things in games in general. And the fact that, it's so portable is a big plus, perfect for that style of game to take with you wherever you go. So yes, I hope that we also get the chance to look at and play more of these in the future.
Let us know if you have already played any Oink games and if you're planning to back these new ones.
Here's a game that can be enjoyed by the whole family, CoraQuest, designed by Dan Hughes and his daughter Cora, who you may have seen on the Dice Tower, or perhaps heard on a podcast here and there. They designed this game together, and it is meant to be played by adults and children alike, but definitely geared towards family-style play. This is a dungeon crawling game. You'll be moving through a dungeon, revealing randomly arranged tiles, moving through them and finding perhaps treasure to discover or monsters to fight. You'll be fighting them with dice, and this is a simple game, but there are a couple of neat mechanics, such as if you miss an entire attack, then your character becomes determined, which makes them more powerful for next time, so that's a nice little consolation prize. And there's also a counter that if you take too long exploring and it fills up all the way, a swarm of spiders is going to come out and attack everybody. So you need to be careful. That's something that's going to keep the action moving if you don't want to run into a swarm of spiders to fight. There's also an app associated with the game that allows people who buy it to create their own content for it. So not only can you draw and create your own characters, there are also some story elements that come into play during the game, and you can mix and match those, create your own stories, perhaps be inspired by some of that content. Again, a great thing, I think, for kids who want to be creative and maybe want to play a game for the first time, or you just want to introduce them to some kind of a fantasy setting like this, that they can take that and make some of their own ideas come to life. And what's in the box already also has this very adorable, childlike art style that I think is well suited to the game. I don't know, obviously this is one that probably most adults aren't going to be super excited to play, but maybe if you have kids, it could turn out to be more fun than a lot of other kids' games that you might get stuck playing.
I don't know. Sometimes something that's for kids turns out to be actually pretty good for everyone. I will say that I really love that when you spend too much time exploring, it's not like toxic gas, lava, horde of demons. It's what's the worst thing you think of? Spiders.
Yeah, that's
Lots
bad.
of spiders.
Yeah, they're coming, so you got to be quick. If you want to try playing CoraQuest, you can back it right now for $42.
Our next game is Embryo Machine from Lion Wings Publishing. This is a game that is actually about piloting giant mechs known as embryos. Apparently, they dug them up in this country. It seems to be a trope where, like, where do these machines come from? You found them underground. Sure, why not? But you're going to be battling with them. This is a game when you will have these mechs with different cards with different abilities you could draft or actually use beginner setups for different models or even advanced sides. And then, of course, you're going to bring your machines to the battlefield and duke it out and see who is the winner. There are a bunch of different cards for you to use, different equipments that maybe increase speed, different missile pods to attach to your mech. And like I said, there are different modes so you can sort of go into it. You can start off with these beginner layouts of machines that are already good to go, and they have advanced sides, which will have more advanced stuff. And then, of course, once you know all the core mechanics, maybe know the cards, you can do the drafting and build your own machine from the ground up and really get a more advanced machine that's customized to whatever your play style is. I know that I really like the fact that you can sort of just go where you feel comfortable, because I know some people are like, look, can you just set something up in front of me so I'm good to go? And judging by the styles, you can be like, well, I know you tend to be like the charging, so I'll give you the close range guy. Or if you like long range, I'll give you the long range person. So that way it's easier to get people to come play the game. And once you play a while, then you can really have the fun customizing it. Because the few mech video games I've really loved are because you're like, really can switch some things up. It's not simply there's just the ABC robot. You can be like, I want those missile pods. I like those. So I like that they sort of gave the best of both worlds with this.
Mm-hmm.
I know personally they put the names of the robots out there, and you can actually demo this on Tabletopia, by the way. I'm more of the Visner, I think I'm saying that right, looks like the play style I would enjoy. It's more of the long range style. So I don't know what other people, I'm curious to see what robots they would like.
Always good to have more robots in the world and in board games. Yeah, it is. It's definitely fun to be able to customize and create your own. It seems to, it's a medium that lends itself well to that. Robots have different parts. You should be able to make them however you like.
I will say what I found was a little funny, at least to me, was I went to the comment section just in case there's anything. Usually I try to do for Kickstarter. Sometimes I forget to. But for this one, a lot of the comments were, man, this is a shame that's not a miniatures game. It's like, it has all this cool stuff, but because you can't literally take apart the robot and build the miniatures, which, look, don't get me wrong, I'd love me some Lego Voltron action, and I'm sure one day when Aegis does that, their Ultimate Deluxe Edition, where you can take your robots and combine them together.
Why won't you let me spend $600 more on this?
Yes, but because it is not miniatures, it is a lot cheaper. You can get the core base set for only $45 versus how much you'd have to spend for miniatures. So I think that's a pretty good deal.
The next pick is Maquis from Side Room Games. This is actually the second edition of the game. It takes place in Nazi-occupied France during World War II, and you play as a resistance group fighting against the Nazis. This is a single-player only game meant to take 15 to 30 minutes maybe, and it is a worker placement game. You're going to have a couple of missions that you need to carry out, and you're going to be placing your workers at different locations in the city trying to do that. Perhaps gaining certain resources that you need to deliver, carrying out secret missions, like maybe you need to blow up a train, all kinds of intrigue and subterfuge afoot. And another little twist that you have to worry about is once your worker has been placed and carried out their action, they need to be able to get back to a safe house. So they need to be able to draw a straight line back in the town without any soldiers or guards or anything standing in the way. So you do have to be careful, and I think you will get that sense of that thematic secrecy that's at play as well. I did not get the chance to play the original Maquis, I hope I'm saying saying it right too. I'm pretty sure that's how you would say it. But this new one has a couple of tweaks to the rules. It includes some new additional content as well. And it seems fun. There's a lot of solo games, but I feel like worker placement is not. A lot of worker placement games sometimes have solo modes in them, but I don't know that I see it too often as a strictly solo game idea. And it's a cool setting. It sounds like fun to me to play. And if you already have the original one, you can add on just the new stuff if you want for just $5, which is pretty good.
I mean, it sounds like a perfect Kickstarter right now. It's a solo game. It's bringing back one from the past. It's got an update kicks. So if you do have the old stuff, you don't have to feel guilty you have to buy a whole new game over again. Seems to checkmark all the boxes of things we like to see in a Kickstarter.
Checked all. Plus, you get to take on Nazis, punch some Nazis, I guess.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. If you are new to the game, then you can get this new second edition for $29.
Cult of the Deep is a hidden role game along with some very obviously Lovecraftian influence, but with some extra mechanics and twists that I really enjoy, and I think will add some new, at least fix some of the problems I have with some of these games. The way the game works is you are all trying to, well, most of you are trying to summon these ancient creatures, which could change depending on which creatures you choose to summon and number of players. There will be the High Priest, whose role will be public, very similar to Bang, and they, of course, are trying to stay alive while all these rituals are taking place. He will have Faithful, whose roles will be hidden, and they're going to try to keep the High Priest alive. But there will also be Heretics, who are pretty much just trying to burn everything down, as well as Kabbalists, who are trying to kill the High Priest. On your turn, you're going to roll some dice, which will have symbols that either heal, injure someone, or can be added to one of the rituals to get special effects. Whenever you add to a ritual, they will pretty much give a bonus, and if you actually complete the ritual, they're going to give you a bigger one. If you injure or heal someone, you can apply that to anyone, including yourself. People will have the chance to react to that with either abilities they've gained from helping a ritual out, or another role they'll have that'll be public. Everyone gets an additional role that's like Guardian or other something. It's not your place in the cult hierarchy, I guess I should say, which may be able to help you out there. After you do all the dice, you're going to see the outcomes of that. But what I really do like is, let's say, like in Bang, you are one of the Kabbalists, and you're like, I'm just going to kill my way to the High Priest. You kill the player to your right. They will reveal their role, but they're not out of the game. You then will choose a Wraith card, and there are different Wraith abilities, and you'll get Wraith dice. Now, these can be used in reaction, which could replace people's dice, counter some other people's dice. Pretty much, you are still going to be able to mess around with the game state and win or lose with your team. This is something I really love because one of the things I hate about a lot of these hidden role games where there's player elimination is oftentimes sort of like you just sort of got to kill your way through regardless, and then you're just sort of sitting out of the game like, well, I hope the rest of my teammate does well. So you still are at the table. In addition, the center area with this different rituals, they can change out which creatures you're summoning, like there's a siren or a kraken, and they have their own special effects too. So there's more than just simply killing left or right. Sometimes you want to gather up some of those other abilities from the ritual, even if you don't want them to fully complete everything, because that's going to help you out in the long term. So I feel like there's a lot more going on to what we're used to in maybe some of these more simple hidden role games.
Yeah, I like hidden role games, and I obviously I'm not a fan of player elimination. I don't think anybody is.
Yeah, I feel like in both Bang and I have like a Romance of Three Kingdoms reskin of it.
Yeah,
you seem to be the one who gets sort of thrown under the bus of I'm just gonna kill my way through to get to a person.
Me personally.
Yes, you. And I remember because every time it's like you're like, really? Again?
I feel like we just stopped playing those games so long ago that I can't remember because I think they're bad. But
well, yeah.
So that's an improvement to me, and I also like the idea of combining hidden roles with dice rolling. I think is kind of unique. I don't see that combo too often in games, so that's neat. Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you roll all attack dice, you're like, look, I'm sorry, I'm hurting people this turn. So there's a lot more cover, I think, for characters. It also doesn't feel, because there's only 3 actions and there's ritual things too. There's probably going to be some dice manipulation. So I feel like you're not going to have too much of like this game is just randomness. Like it just seems like so many other fun things are going to go on that at least I think it's worth taking a look at for hidden roles games, especially if you are sick of being the one who gets killed off really fast. If you're interested in taking a look into the abyss of the deep, you can start by buying this game at $35.
Of course, it is February again, which for Kickstarter means it's Zine Quest. There are a whole bunch of zines up on Kickstarter right now that will be going up throughout the month of February. Small, short form role playing games or role playing supplements. And we're just going to highlight a few each that we enjoyed. For me, there's one called Skullbox, which has players playing as skulls in boxes, and you are the bad guys trying to defend your evil powers from the good guys. This has some really cool artwork in it. You're going to be setting traps and going through raids trying to fend off the heroes, as it were. And this game seems to have its own theme song too. If you watch the Kickstarter video, it's got this cool punk rock vibe to it. It looks really awesome. The next one I'll talk about is The Worst Days, which is a horror RPG that focuses on social aspects. So there are different horrific things happening in the background. Could be Cthulhu related, who knows? But the meat of the RPG is you and your fellow characters going through coming of age stuff, emotional arcs, working through social anxiety and issues with each other while this terrible stuff is going on in the background and probably will ultimately come to the forefront, but not really a combat focused one. I like that juxtaposition. And then there's one called Torque, which is a racing themed RPG that takes place after some kind of world changing event has occurred. You may decide what that is when you play. And there are two modes of this one. One of them is you're rolling dice and doing your actual racing. And the other one is sort of your downtime. And that's more about your personal life, your social activities outside of the racetrack. So you could play one or the other separately or combine them into a different kind of campaign. Well, what did you have that you thought was cool from Zine Quest, Will?
Well, my first one is a little bit of a cheat, is Hibernation Games, and it's actually 5 different zines by 5 different creators. So
Wow.
you can just go into there, and there's a lot of crazy ones. I think the one that, to me, that stuck out the most that I thought was, it's serious, but also to be funny, you're in like a post-apocalyptic future, and you're trying to communicate with your loved one through pretty much Amazon reviews of products you have not actually had. So you got to like try to communicate that way through messages.
I like that.
The other two I have up really cool. The other one is Low Stakes. This is pretty much you are playing as monsters in modern times, and pretty much you're dealing with it's more of a humorous and comical of dealing with general things like maybe arguing with your roommate about their girlfriend because she eats too much garlic and you're a vampire. Things like that. And finally, this one I feel like is straight up your alley. I'm surprised initially when you told me you didn't see it. Is that it's Bucket of Bolts. This the creator of this one actually did a zine previously called Artifact, and has a similar idea. In Artifact, you pretty much made a weapon that would and you tell the story of how it passed through different hands. Bucket of Bolts is you designing a ship straight off, the manufacturing, and explaining how each captain, when they used it, and how it got transferred, whether it was sold or most likely stolen.
When you say ship, you mean spaceship.
Yes, spaceship. Sorry. Your Millennium Falcon, and how it is passed through in the story it tells, and how it's got an upgrade and changed, or maybe it took damage here or something like that. And I mean, just like all these zines, they take things in such fun, weird ideas. It's always that. I know Bucket of Bolts, it talked about as if you tell the whole story, but I feel like maybe for Artifact 2, what I would love to do is take Bucket of Bolts, for example, and be like, I started off, but then I give it to you. And then you explain what happens to it next, and you sort of pass the story along that way too.
That could be cool. Yeah, a lot of cool applications for these as one-shots or to incorporate into other games. And there's a ton more. There were a bunch more that I thought personally looked really cool, and there are going to be more throughout the month that maybe we'll pop back in and highlight a few here and there. But you can let us know in the comments which of these zines you're looking at, or any other games that you are considering backing this week on Kickstarter that we talked about or otherwise. Again, that's in that comment section right down below us.
Let us know, because like we said, there are plenty of zines alone, let alone other games. So we'd love to hear what you're backing. Until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been Kickstarter Pickstarter. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
We want you to like and subscribe, and if you have the chance, take a look at our Patreon.
Thank you for being a friend. Subscribe to our channel and back again. Okay.